Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Lunch and Learn today. This is the last one in our series of RSI, our regular and substantive interactions that we're building with our students, but it's also being able to look at how can you uh, build that opportunity for your instructor presence in a course that's already been built for you. Some people have talked to me before and felt a little bit stifled. So this is the opportunity to look at, well, okay, I'm given a shell. Now, how do I make it my own? So today we'll be talking about, well, why do the pre-built courses exist? I have an analogy of a pre-built course. It's very creative. I'm sure you'll love it. And then we're just going to remind ourselves what RSI means if you've missed the first three in this series. We'll talk about building instructor presence and some tools for engagement. And then we'll just remind ourselves of our key takeaways. But to start off, what is one way that you show your students that you are human? And this can mean for an in-person, online, or hybrid course. And whatever that means to you, you can feel free to type that in the chat or to unmute and share.
I would say by being adaptable, honestly. Like there are some instructors who, this is my PowerPoint, and the student might say, well, what about this? And they'll say, well, no, it's right here, but being able to kind of change and kind of pivot and not be fake about it, if that makes sense.
Excellent. That added layer of flexibility helps them realize that you're flexible, you're a real person, you're human, responsive to them. Excellent. I do see a comment about admitting that you actually do make some mistakes. And although you're an expert in the field, you might not know everything, and it's okay to admit that. Share a little vulnerability. When we were in the trust session that we had last time, we talked about that selective vulnerability, just those little areas that are okay to let your guard down for a minute. Sharing some personal experiences with them, good and bad. That's something that we discussed before also. I love that you brought that up because it's your students are looking to you as someone who's successful in the field. So it's letting them know, okay, well, I struggle with this, but it's also letting them know, how did you make it through it? What were your solutions? What were your strategies for dealing with that difficult situation or for making it through things? For instance, one of the things that people might often say is, oh, I'm not good at math either, rather than, yeah, math is a struggle for me, but this is how I've been able to get past that or use it. These are the strategies that I use. I would also often share with my students if I wanted to remember something. Remember when we used to mail things? We used to put stamps on envelopes, things like that. So I had to mail my bills out, something like that. I would actually tape them to the doorknob so that when I left, I had to take them off the doorknob in order to leave my house. So that way I would remember to put them in the mailbox. That's a strategy that I had to help remember to get my mail to the mailbox or to the post office. Trying to be authentic, even if it's not 100% perfect. You're trying to let them know it's okay. We're all real people. Someone else slid their envelopes into the door frame, so they had a similar situation. Excellent. So what I heard in this a lot was also offering up that vulnerability, letting students know exactly who you are. And we'll talk about some other strategies too as we move on. So when we're looking at this, one of the thoughts is, and I do know, again, we have a number of departments that are using some pre-built courses. What happens with a pre-built course, typically, there's a partnership between an instructional designer and a subject matter expert who's from your department. Might not be from your campus, but from your department. And together, they work to build a course that becomes a shell that other individuals are able to use. These are particularly helpful for our adjuncts because sometimes when they come in, they have full-time jobs other places. It's nice to have everything together in one area to help support them in their teaching efforts. Sometimes our full-time people feel frustrated though. They say, oh, but I had a class that I really liked, or I had this activity in here that I really liked. And that's why I wanted to be able to have this session so that we could talk about how can you still incorporate yourself into these pre-builts. The ideas behind the pre-built courses is to continue to have core content that is similar across campuses. So we want to make sure, especially in this world, for instance, I'm teaching abnormal psychology at night, and some of my students typically attend classes in Dover on the Terry Center or on the Terry campus. So when they're with me, if they had a similar course at Terry, then that Psych 121, for instance, before they got to my Psych 223, if it was a similar experience, 121 was a similar experience across the college, then the students are better able to take my Psych 223, which is also designed to be a similar course across the campuses. So that way it can facilitate some of that mobility that our students need to have or sometimes have to have because of the way that they're enrolled at different campuses for different courses. And also the standardization of assessments. So we want to make sure that how we're assessing students is also similar across campuses. And those are some of the things, the summative assessments that we have in those pre-built courses that we're really not supposed to change because that is our classic measure across those campuses. And all of this builds up to consistency, just making sure that we're preparing all of our students similarly across campuses so that they can have success at whatever campus in which they enroll. So here's my clever analogy. I'm so excited about this, but a pre-built course, it's kind of like a well-constructed house. It's solid, it's reliable, but there's lots of potential for you to decorate it and personalize it. So even though you have a blueprint, which is kind of your assessments and the general organization of the course, you still have a ton of freedom when it comes to creating that own feel. So you put some paint on it, you can hang a picture here, you can add a video, you can add an image, you can add an article, you can change up some of the formative assessments so they match the cohort of students that you have that you're trying to prepare for success in your course. And it's just trying to think about it as we have this pre-built course that's kind of like the shell of the house, and now we're trying to decorate it to make it our own. So what is one thing that you have changed or would like to change in a pre-designed course that helped you start to make it your own? Have you encountered courses like this that are pre-built? And if so, what's something that you did? Making your own slide decks so that you can personalize the instruction that way. Added some activities. Even editing the instructor page, right? The instructor information page, making that your own and putting your own kind of flair style with that. Any other ideas? Added ed puzzles and some videos. Yeah, Tatiana, she likes ed puzzles too. Yeah. Fabulous. So being able to add some information as well. So it's okay to feel that bit of autonomy, to be able to bring in those examples and make sure we've got some current examples, for instance, current events, things like that. Terrific. So if we look at, I'd like to remind you for just a second what RSI is, responsive or regular substantive interactions. And what it is kind of, it comes from government guidelines for online courses, but we can see how it really is an important factor for all of our coursework. We want our feedback, the information that we give our students, to be content related. So even though we might say, hi, how are you? How was your weekend? Those are all great ways to kind of build that community, but they don't qualify as a regular substantive interaction. That substantive interaction has to do with content related information. So giving students a summary of what they had done last week in the Monday announcement and what they're going to do this week. That can give them some more substantive feedback or information, or when we're responding to them in their assignments. Sometimes one suggestion that I've heard before is to have a response bank that you can pull comments out of the response bank. And I've done that before too, because it makes the grading just a little bit easier when you see the students are making similar actions in their work, that you have a response ready for them. But I try to add a sentence or two each time that personalizes it towards that student, gives them an example specifically from their writing, or gives them something that is specific towards their action in the course. So that way, maybe I get the first two sentences of my comment, but I add another sentence or two that personalizes it. And when it's regular and substantive, it's initiated by the instructor. So we don't just wait for the students to contact us and say, oh, nobody messages me, nobody ever says anything. We give them opportunities. And this can be through that email class list. We can email them through the class list in the course. We can post some announcements. Some people even do respond through text with their students. So those are some things that you can do also. But our communication, we do need at least part of it to be regular and scheduled. So for instance, those Monday morning announcements, or those Wednesday midweek announcements that you might send regularly, and the students know they can count on them. And I do see that sometimes we have pre-scheduled announcements, and then you can customize them or update them for each class per week, depending upon the cohort of your students, where they are, what their understanding is. It's a good idea, Celeste. RSI is not. So it's not only those automated reminders that we can set up at the beginning of the semester and go, poof, done, because we do want to be responsive to our students. So for instance, in Celeste's comment, she said that she can edit them though to make them more specific to that cohort of students. That's moving it into that substantive side. Our intelligent agents that we can set up, those can help us with timing so that it can respond very quickly to students when they complete an assignment. Good job, you completed the assignment. Or if they complete a test and they don't score as well as maybe they would have liked, we can provide some resources for them in there with those intelligent agents. But if we only deploy those things, that's not going to qualify for regular and substantive interactions. It's only a portion of it. So you still want to have those substantive interactions where you are actively present in that course. Recorded videos are good because it adds instructor presence. I have been a huge advocate for recorded videos, but if we're only popping those videos up there and we're never interacting with the students through email or through announcements or even in person, then we're going to find that those aren't quite enough to do regular and substantive interactions as well. And then finally, we don't really want to give just bare links. And I think that's going away. People are recognizing that more and more. But what that means is that we put up the YouTube link and we just put it up there and basically feel like, well, I put it up there, so students should look at it. And then we're surprised if students don't look at it. Instead of providing a page that has information about what they're going to see in that video, maybe a couple of thought questions that go with that video. It's helping them recognize what's the purpose for this, because we're all busy. We all have busy lives. And if we think, well, this is just a nice to have, this isn't something that I really need to watch. And if it's 12 minutes long, whatever. If we have a little bit of an explanation, and sometimes that's only a few sentences, it doesn't mean an entire essay that accompanies that video, but just a couple of sentences that give students that understanding of why am I going to watch it? What should I pay attention to in this video, can help increase the likelihood that they're going to interact with these resources that you're thoughtfully providing for them. So what is one way that you already initiate substantive interactions with your students? What's one idea? Let's give each other some ideas here. Emails and text messages. So interacting with them in a couple of different communication channels, that's really important. Send reminders to students who didn't turn in the assignment, so it helps them know that they need to turn that in. And I know my department has It's not a grace period, but up to 3 days after the assignment was due for, some points off, they can turn it in. So it gives them kind of that reminder. And I often like to add in there, 15% off is better than a zero. So excellent. Students sign in and answer a question that asks them at the beginning of class, and it pertains to the unit. So kind of a warm-up question, getting them there, getting them to sign in. Is that in your online course, Celeste?
No, but I do put in when I post the announcements, I put in questions in there. Think about as you're going through the materials, think about yada 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 yada. How did you feel or whatever? What do you think? How does it pertain to the material? Sorry, I can't get that out of
Fabulous.
my mouth today.
And then, but you're saying that you do this, sign in and they answer a question, that's in your in-person courses too. Excellent. And I think one of the things that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago was that I think we've all had some in-person courses where we've been in the class that we know the instructor isn't really there. I mean, they're there, but they're not really there. So we're really trying to move it past the idea that it's that the instructor is just kind of wallpaper there, and that they're really trying to interact and become human with their students. Now, please hear me on this too. That doesn't mean that you have to tell them your whole life story. We talked about selective vulnerability. So again, maybe those professional areas where you struggled, and then these were the strategies that you used to overcome that struggle. You can keep it all business related. You don't have to tell them about your children or your dogs or your trip to Tahiti. You don't have to do that. Some people do. But if that's not who you are, it's okay. That's not what we're recommending here. It's recommending that side that's on still that professional business side, at least, to be able to show them, okay, these are some ways that these are some things that you might encounter. Here's some strategies. This is how I handled that. And so you don't have to get personal if that's not what you would like to do. But it's having that ability so that students see you as accessible and see you as they have an ability to connect with you, to talk with you, to ask you those questions. So to build your instructor presence a bit in these pre-built courses, you will remember that there's a Meet Your Instructor page. And on that page, you have that opportunity to give some of that information to students about you. You have the opportunity to add a picture so that they can see you. I've even added kind of an introductory video there before. I think this is more important even for people who might have names that are difficult to pronounce. For me, Laura Thompson is pretty straightforward, but Celeste, they might look at your name and go, huh, how do I do that? Or maybe even Rhonda, is it Sherman, Charmin? How do I say that? And so we're looking at those ones. And if they hear Becky Boudreau, then they go, okay, I know how to pronounce that. And then it reduces one little piece of anxiety for them if they're going to meet you in person or if it's going to be an online course. Either way. And I recommend sending out some kind of communication to students even before the course begins to help reduce that little bit of anxiety that they might have. I'm starting a new course. What will it be like? What will the instructor be like? If they have that opportunity to at least see your picture and maybe have a video response so they can hear your voice and see some more of those social cues that you can offer through your facial expressions. You can see sometimes I'm expressive with my hands too. Even in the Zoom box, every once in a while you'll see my hands move around, that they can get to know you just a little bit more. But at least, make sure that instructor page is personalized. And again, you only have to give your professional information there. You wouldn't have to, again, give all kinds of personal information there. So you decide what level you feel fine with. And the newest template also has student hours on there so that you can add your student hours right there on that instructor page so they can recognize how they can get a hold of you. And if you can hold a virtual hour or two, that can help many of your students who might have difficulty during the day because they have full-time jobs, things like that. And again, you want to reach out before the course begins to give them kind of that sense of welcomeness. And it can just be simply through an email to just welcome them to the course. And I talked a little bit about using video, and you can also use audio, and you can use it strategically. So you don't have to have video for absolutely every single week as your announcement needs to be a video. However, if you have an assignment that you know is really tricky for students, and that you've taught this course a couple of semesters already, and you do know that they often struggle with this particular aspect of an assignment, you could provide a video with a screen share that you can just make through Zoom and pop that into the course so that they have the opportunity to also hear a voice, see some social cues, receive it differently than if they had to read all of that text, and see the assignment next to you while you refer to it, draw on it, whatever you do. But it's thinking about providing that video or audio also for feedback on assignments. So many courses have different steps to the final project. That, for instance, I have one where there's a draft before the project is due, and giving them that opportunity that if you can provide some video support there or audio, again, it gives them another social cue, makes it a little more interesting to look at or interact with. They also hear your tone of voice, so they don't read it as much anymore. We don't know what their experiences were in before, how critical that feedback was to them, how kind the feedback was to them before. So it's, if they have had really negative experiences with feedback in the past, they're probably going to read yours, no matter how you try to write it, they're probably going to read yours as an attack, possibly as well. If you add that little bit of video or add that little bit of audio, then they can hear your voice, hear your tone while you're delivering it, and it can really help them digest that feedback just a little bit more. And then finally, we do want to be timely in that constructive feedback that we're providing. And we can communicate to students and say, okay, you can expect feedback on assignments. It's often in the department policies too. Feedback on assignments within 3 days, small assignments, 5 days, larger assignments, whatever the communication is, at least they know what it is. If they email you, you could put in there, you'll respond within 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, whatever is going to be your policy. Much longer than that, and the question's kind of gone in the ether by then anyway. But trying to think about how often you could respond. These are all ways that you can begin to personalize this course and really put yourself more into this course that you've been given. So thinking about that Meet Your Instructor page, what's one thing that you are considering adding or that you have added in the past to help make your students feel more connected to you?
I think I'm definitely going to make a video so that I know how to pronounce my name.
Okay.
Students who I teach for over a year still don't know how to say my name. So they just call me Miss B. I'm like, I think that's a good idea.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's great. And if you remind me, Becky, I have in my email signature, it has a say my name link, and it actually is this website that you can just record how to say your name so that it can be in your email signature. If you're ever interested in that one, let me know and I'll send you an email back for that. I see video feedback.
I like that.
Who said that?
Celeste, I like that. Can you send that to me too?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You and I have emailed before too, so you might see it in that little green box at the bottom of my email. And video feedback on projects, videos, and for more difficult assignments, this is a way inside the course to be able to help your students and to support them. That's fabulous. All right, any other thoughts? Oh, and I don't know if people use them much anymore, but even adding Bitmojis or little images, sometimes people have done that just to kind of lighten things up for students. I know that I saw Katie Kelly writing an axolotl in one of
I
her
do
images.
that for all my announcements because it just adds, like, if it's July 4th week, I'll do like the firecracker thing. Or if it's the last week, it'll be like, we're almost done and we're racing to the end or something. And they really like that. They're like, oh, which one are you doing now? I'm like, we're gonna have to find out. Like we just joke around. It's pretty cool.
That's fabulous because you also meet in person with your students. So they're talking about what they're seeing online
Yeah.
when they're meeting with you.
Well, I do it for the online course too, so I never get feedback from online, but I do get feedback every time. They're like, oh, look what you're doing now. And I'm like, oh, we'll see what we'll do next week, you know? Just, it is what it is. It's a conversation piece for the first 3 seconds of class, and I
That's
think they just like making fun of it, and I love that part. So I'm like, great, which one can I do now? Because I'll make a bad saying with it, like it'll have, green, it'll have me holding a stoplight, and I'll be like, ready, set, go, and they're like, ready, set, go. We'll get something better to write, and if they do, I'll write it in there instead, or it just kind of it makes us a community. I feel like
fabulous.
definitely talk.
For anyone who's unfamiliar with Bitmojis, you can use those online. Bitmoji, it coordinates with the Snapchat too, but you can have it on your phone, and on your phone, you can actually edit the Bitmoji so that you can put the message in, like what Katie was talking about. So you can have it say, remember, Jack wants you to finish your assignment, or whatever, something like that. However you want to communicate with your students.
I didn't know about that feature. So
You have to use it with your phone. Like you have to set up on your phone first and then use it, or
I set it up with a Dell Tech account actually, and use my Dell Tech email so that everything I do Dell Tech is Dell Tech. And then that way, and I did it on my computer when I'm writing the announcements.
And do they still let you edit them on the computer? Wasn't sure if they still had that feature on
I
the-
don't know that feature at all, so I don't.
Okay. If I did notice I have it hooked up with my text, and in my text, I can send my son a specialized one that says, don't forget brunch with mom, stuff like that, whatever. He's 19, so, it's a different kind of reminder, but all right. So that's a thought, but I do like what Katie pointed out too, is these areas that we're talking about, you can keep them totally separate from your personal life so that Del Tech is Del Tech and it's not using your personal resources. And some people might use, say, Google Voice also, so they might be able to give out a number to students so that they can be a little more available, but they're not giving out their number. So there are other alternatives. If you need more ideas, reach out to me. And I'm sure a lot of your colleagues have them too, but if you want to chat with me anytime, let me know. All right. And then we're going to talk about just some tools also. And this isn't really a chance to teach these tools necessarily, but we have some resources available in CCIT that can teach you about these tools. Padlet is one of them. So you can add some Padlets. Padlet is an online bulletin board. We do have a Padlet expert in the room as well. April has done a lot of presentations around Padlet. So if she wants to chime in, I won't tell her no. I won't say stop. But it is an online bulletin board where you can put your ideas. Originally, this is what it kind of started off to be. You put an idea up there and students could reply to ideas. And you can just collect all of these ideas. It has really come far from there. You have sandboxes now where you can kind of play with ideas. I've used Padlet in my psych courses for kind of that warm-up activity at the beginning of the semester. We get to know each other. One of them was, how do you feel about karaoke? I love it, or I can't stand it, these kinds of things. And it was really interesting to see the students' responses to those kinds of ideas. You can put them into columns so they can respond to different prompts and only to those prompts. You have one image that one picture where people can just put up random things. They can add images, they can add video, they can add text, and they can even respond to each other if you enable that. Do you have any other tips, April, to add to that?
I mean, you could do things like in chronological order if you wanted to do like the timeline. So there's different ways that you can structure the Padlets that you have there, or even add, video discussions and things like that to it as well. But I think you covered it.
If you want to be able to see examples of it, though, we do have the training. I don't know, April, can you grab that link?
Yeah,
and
I'll
pop
grab
it in?
that.
Okay, cool. All right. So you can go see some trainings about Padlet as well to see if it's a tool that you like. If you want to talk about it more, feel free to contact me, and we'll be able to talk more about some of the ideas of how you could use it. I think we all know something about Google Docs or Word. Interestingly enough, though, sometimes we don't think about all of the ideas that we could use for those. Again, we can do peer-reviewed kind of writing workshops within those Google Docs so they can talk to each other there. They can work together. I know that some faculty members I've worked with try to avoid group projects in their online courses because they say, oh, it's just too hard. But if you implement things like Google Docs or your Word from SharePoint, then actually people can work on it at 4 in.the morning. When, even if they're not able to be on it at the same time, they can work on a document together. And I know that I've pulled up a Google Doc as I'm sitting next to April, and the two of us are working on the same project, but we pull up the Google Doc to collect all of our work anyway. So, I mean, whether you're next to each other in a group, or if you're miles apart and hours apart, you can still be able to contribute to the information. Yeah, and Celeste pointed out, yeah, we all use them at work. Terrific. Oh, and Amy, were you talking about, you said educational Pinterest? Did Padlet remind you of that?
Yep, that's what I always thought it was.
It can definitely be a repository of resources for your class and for whatever you're doing as well. Fabulous. And then you can also in Google Docs, and I think people have done some things like this, but you can put up study guides or collaborative lecture notes. So the students can get a copy of the notes that you've created and they can work on those. But you can use tools like that in your pre-built courses to add supports that you feel are important for your students. And then you can also add, we talked about audio and video. You can do that right inside of Brightspace. If you use D2L, if you use Brightspace to add audio or video, it doesn't let you put a fake background up behind you. So that's the only thing. And it doesn't do the screen sharing, really. Thank you, April. She popped in there the link for the resources. But if you want to be able to have some of those opportunities for screen sharing, anything like that, you can use Zoom. We all have access to Zoom. You can make a recording of your Zoom session and you can pop that in there. Loom is another tool. Has anyone heard of Loom before in the room? I see a couple of nods and I see a couple of yeses. Loom is also another recording thing that you can do with sometimes people use Screencastify, sometimes people use other resources. Loom's one that I like to use just for short little videos. Oftentimes in the past, if you've asked me how to do something, I might just make a quick Loom and show you how to do it and send it off to you. So trying to be able to support people there. Those are different ways you can make videos. Rhonda, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just so the Loom is a screencast kind of a thing.
Yeah, it is. It can be. Let's see if we can bring up quick and I can show you.
Laura, there's also another one that's available by Microsoft. It's called Clip Champ or Clip Champ, something like that. You could do it in Office
I heard about that, but I
365.
haven't really used it. Can you describe it a little bit more for us?
Yeah, so it actually you can create it so you go to ClimChamp and you add video and you could record, you could either say I just only want to record my screen or yep, ClimChamp, yep, and you sign in with your Office 365 account, which is would be your Dell Tech login information like you do for Word or your email. And then when you go to create video, you can say I want to record with screen, like your video yourself too. And then you can also edit. So like as you're recording and stuff and you want to take away bits and pieces, you can, do that, modification. And you can do a bit longer videos. So I think the maximum is like a 14-minute video. So it works if you need something a little bit longer, but I liked it so far because you can also like customize, you can add video on top of that. I don't know if you ever worked with like TikTok, but it kind of works like TikTok where you can add text and you can add notes, you can do a voiceover. So it's you get a little more freedom in modifying it.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's fabulous. Terrific. Thank you. And I like this, that you can have the auto caption. They
Yeah.
look pretty good. Some captions are better than others. And some are more grammatically correct, things like that. But that's a nice feature to be
Yeah,
able
and it
to
saves directly to your OneDrive. And then you can also like, export as an MP4 like anywhere, like if you want to save it out of OneDrive.
That's terrific. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Anyone else have another resource that they like to use in their courses? We saw Ed Puzzles was one idea also. Anything else anybody uses regularly in their courses? Or semi-regularly?
I use a lot of Google Docs, but that's mostly in my face-to-face for class activities so that everything's there in D2L. And yeah, that works really, really well, but not so much for the online. Just it's so busy. They don't really need a lot of extra stuff.
Mhm.
They're just struggling to get the things done. But
Yeah, I hear you. I do. I hear you. Excellent. Well, that was one of the things that we talked about in the past too at another one of these sessions was how sometimes when we try to group people, and this could even work for maybe your face-to-face, sometimes when we try to group people, we might group them by topic or we might randomly group them, but maybe having them talk about when they're actually typically available. I mean, we understand that all of a sudden kids will have a holiday concert, or something like that. So you thought you were available on Thursdays and now you're not for that week or whatever. But helping students kind of pair up with people or partner up with individuals who, yeah, the two of us are usually available Monday nights. And helping them find that commonality might help facilitate better group work. All right. Well, the next thing I had in here was talking about the tools you use, but we just did that. So really thinking about some key takeaways from today. You do want to stay with the course structure, with the essential course structure, just for that commonality, that consistency between the campuses. You want to keep those learning objectives. You want to make sure that you're adhering to the syllabus, because the syllabus is your contract with the students. This is what you will learn in this class. You want to keep those summative assessments because those are the piece that helps unify the course across the campuses. Now, there could be other things you have to keep. So for instance, one of the departments I'm working with social sciences, there will be an assessment that is also required, an assignment that is also required because it helps support the SLOA. So you might want to check with your departments just to make sure, because instructors have freedom mostly with those formative assessments or with those formative assignments. And formative assignments, if that's a new word for you, are the ones that are not like that exam at the end of a module, that test. They're assignments that are supposed to inform your teaching. So that's why they're called formative. And there's typically some flexibility there. Or in the course design, the people I'm working with, we might design 2 or 3 formatives to allow the instructor some choice. And it depends on if it's a 15-week or a 7-week, that maybe you prune down what you're doing for the 7 weeks so that you're not just trying to cram a 15-week into a 7-week. But again, double check with your department just to make sure that there aren't any things that have to be there. We are starting to put in those instructor guides in the courses as well, and you'll often be able to find that information there. Oh, don't get rid of assignment number 2 because we need that for SLOA, but you might want to double check in your department just to make sure. Are there any other thoughts that you can think of here, or any questions, anything you were hoping I would talk about that I didn't talk about today? Just curious. Okay. So what's one way that you're excited to personalize your pre-designed course? Was there something that you've done before and now you feel validated and you're like, yep, I'm going to do this every single time? Or did we give you kind of a new idea today?
I'm definitely gonna add videos to mine because I haven't done that yet, but I did take IDT courses this semester and the videos walked me through the lessons and stuff like that. And I was like, I never realized how much that was helpful.
Fabulous. Oh, that's great. I'm glad you found inspiration.
well, I missed all the other RSIs, so actually it was really helpful for me to hear that because, you know, I've been teaching online for a long time, but after a while, it just sort of gets robotic, and it really was a good reminder that it's not just a matter of posting the course and then grading the stuff that's there. It's also interacting with students. So I'm challenged to do more personal interactions. Of course, it's very time consuming when you're just trying to keep up with the grading, but I still think that might yield some better results if, especially early on. Like I said, I do, you know, I kind of have my routine for informing students when an assignment wasn't posted, but I think I'm challenged to do more interactive work on the online.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. And the idea isn't that you have to email every student individually every single time for every week or something like that. So to help you feel a little bit better about that, some of the ways you can personalize it is sometimes I'll post a Wednesday thing, especially when I'm teaching online. I'll post a Wednesday thing that talks about, okay, well, you've been working in this discussion board. I saw Rhonda had this great idea about this topic, and I saw that Kristen had this great idea about this topic. Go check out their posts so that you can also contribute to those ideas. And that helps build that interaction. I don't have to respond to everyone in the class. I do my first discussion board, I tend to respond to everybody because I want everyone to feel heard and seen. After that, I might just respond to a few, but I try to spread it out. So I'm not always responding only to Ron because he's got all the best answers and he always answers right away. I try to make sure that I'm interacting with some of my other students as well in the course so that they also feel good. If they're not responding quickly enough to be able to contribute though, I am one of those people, I grade discussion boards, especially in an online course, very strictly because that's our only way to interact with each other. And if you only post your initial response, you're not contributing in a discussion. And you're just putting something in there. You're not in a discussion. So you will fail the discussion because you have to interact with people in order to pass.
Actually, our discussions do require me to respond to everybody. So that is one of the reasons.
Oh, do they? Oh, okay. All right. So,
yeah, because they're often posting a topic idea that they're going to use for the course.
Oh.
So I need to go in there and say, yeah, that's great. That's going to work. Or no, that's not going to work. Let's, you know, fine tune it. So I am doing that. And then the other, one of the other discussions is like talking about some research they're going to do, and I have them actually post the articles, and I'm checking to make sure that those are going to work. So that's why I am very busy on those online courses because I am doing it. I was like, well, that's grading, but yeah, I have to respond to every single person to let them know that their work was okay. They have to get my approvals.
Well, that's great. Then you do have some of that built in.
Yeah.
That's good. Are there any other thoughts in the class? Oh, I see. I want to try Clip Champ. See how that can work. Thanks, Tatiana. Excellent. Well, I really wanted you to be able to feel supported in seeing areas where you could still make these pre-built courses your own, because I have worked with some faculty who felt frustrated and like they weren't allowed to do anything at all. So sometimes it's just nice to find out, well, yeah, you have more freedom than you thought you did. And it's good to be able to still inject your personality in there and your instructor presence. Thank you again for coming today. And if you have any questions, just hang out, let me know.